Welcome back, everybody. Today, we're going to be taking a deep dive into this health practice that is really gaining some traction over Japan. It's intermittent fasting.
Mm.
And we're going to be focusing on the 168 method. Now, we're not just talking about, weight loss here.
hmm
We're really exploring this whole idea that this could be the key to living healthier and living longer.
Yeah, and what I think is so fascinating about this whole approach
Mm.
is that it really challenges something that's, such a deeply ingrained habit for so many of us, the three-meal-a-day system. And, it's interesting when you start to look into the history of it, you realize that the system only became widespread really relatively recently. We're talking around the 19th century,
Mm.
largely due to, rise of industrialization and needing to keep the workforce fueled.
So basically,
Three meals a day.
might be more about economics than biology.
Yeah.
So, but how does that impact our health in the long run?
Well, think of your digestive system as a machine,
Mm.
like a machine that's constantly processing food. And if it's running for, 10, 12, even 20 hours a day, it's going to experience wear and tear, just like any machine would. And this constant strain can lead to premature aging of the digestive system, which then impacts what we can eat as we age, not because of age itself, but because of this constant workload.
That's a really interesting way to think about it. I mean, it kind of makes you wonder, is there a more natural rhythm for our bodies?
Before the 19th century, people often ate only 2 meals a day, and these were usually dictated by, daylight hours. So less frequent eating might actually be more in line with, our evolution and how our bodies were originally designed.
So how do we give our digestive system a break then? And maybe even reverse some of that wear and tear?
Well, that's where intermittent fasting comes in,
Um,
specifically the 168 method.
Okay, so let's break that down a little bit. So the 168 method that involves fasting for 16 hours a day, including sleep,
Mm,
and then having an 8-hour window for eating.
exactly. And after about 10 hours of fasting, your liver's glycogen stores,
Yeah.
which are essentially stored carbohydrates. Those are depleted. And then your body shifts to burning fat for fuel. But the real magic happens when you hit that 16-hour mark.
Because that's when our body's natural, like cleanup crew get to work.
Precisely. This is when a process called autophagy kicks into high gear. And autophagy is like a cellular recycling plant. It breaks down damaged components and it uses those to build new healthy cells. And this process is crucial for maintaining cellular health and preventing age-related decline.
That's incredible. And this isn't just a theory, right? The 2016 Nobel Prize in Physiology or Medicine was awarded for research on autophagy.
Yes, it's a really powerful process with far-reaching implications for our health.
Wow. It's amazing to think that Nobel Prize-winning science is happening right inside our bodies. So autophagy isn't just about this, cellular cleanup, though, is it? What are some of the other potential health benefits?
Well, autophagy has been linked to a number of potential health benefits. One promising area is cancer prevention. Wild animals who naturally fast, they have very robust autophagy. And there's growing evidence that autophagy plays a crucial role in eliminating precancerous cells in humans as well.
So by activating autophagy through intermittent fasting, we might be tapping into our body's natural defenses against cancer.
That's the idea. Another benefit is blood pressure regulation. When we fast, our blood sugar and fat levels decrease. And this contributes to healthier blood flow and potentially lower blood pressure.
Less strain on the heart and blood vessels. That's a huge benefit. What about allergies? I've heard there might be a connection there as well.
There's a very strong link between gut health, the immune system, and allergies. And guess what plays a role in maintaining a healthy gut? Autophagy. By giving our digestive system a break, we can actually support a balanced gut microbiome, which may help regulate the immune system and reduce allergic reactions.
So it seems like autophagy is like a key to unlocking all sorts of health benefits. But what about anti-aging? How does fasting help us age more gracefully?
Well, it all comes down to reducing inflammation and cellular damage. When we fast, we decrease the production of inflammatory molecules, which are a major contributor to aging. Plus, autophagy is all about removing those damaged cellular components, essentially keeping our cells younger and functioning better.
So by reducing inflammation and giving ourselves a deep clean, we're essentially slowing down the aging process. This is all incredibly exciting. But before we get ahead of ourselves, let's get practical for a minute. For those of us thinking about trying the 168 method, what are some key things we need to know?
Well, during your fasting window, water is your best friend. Stick to plain water to stay hydrated and manage those hunger pangs.
Okay, so no sneaking in a latte during the fasting window. Got it. But what about when water just doesn't cut it? Is there any snacks we can have that won't break the fast?
There are a few options that won't spike your insulin levels and disrupt autophagy. Plain yogurt, unsalted nuts. These are good options if you're feeling really hungry. The key is to shift your focus from deprivation to the positive outcomes you're aiming for.
I love that reframing. Instead of thinking, I can't eat, it's I'm doing something amazing for my health.
But let's address a common concern I think people have. Doesn't restricting eating to an 8-hour window lead to overeating or even binge eating?
It's a valid concern. But a 2018 study by the University of Illinois at Chicago, Indiana University School of Public Health, and the Salk Institute for Biological Studies in La Jolla, California, they found that participants in the 168 group actually reduced their overall calorie intake. So it suggests that over time, intermittent fasting can help regulate appetite.
So it's not about cramming as much food as possible into those 8 hours, but it's about listening to your body and eating until you're satisfied.
Exactly. And as you adjust to the 168 rhythm, you might find that your hunger cues naturally adjust, and you feel less inclined to overeat. This is making so much sense. But what about those of us who have, demanding schedules or just can't commit to the 168 every day? Is there any wiggle room there?
Absolutely. The 168 method is very adaptable. You could try fasting for a full 24 hours once a week, or experiment with the 5.2 method, where you eat normally for 5 days and follow the 168 for 2 days.
So there's flexibility. We're not locked into a rigid schedule. Are there any other variations out there?
Some people even opt for the 1 meal a day approach, or OMAD, which is more challenging, but can be very effective.
OMAD. That sounds intense. But it's good to know there are options for different lifestyles. Now, it's crucial to emphasize that while intermittent fasting holds amazing potential, it's not a one-size-fits-all solution. Are there any groups of people who should be cautious about trying this?
Absolutely. Intermittent fasting is not suitable for everyone, and it's important to consult with a doctor, especially if you have any underlying health conditions. This method is generally not recommended for people who are underweight, have eating disorders, struggle with digestive issues, have serious illnesses.
Or
Wait,
pregnancy of mantimus, practicacy, have eating disorders, struggle with digestive issues, have serious illnesses, or are pregnant.
Pregnancy is definitely a whole other topic when it comes to nutrition. Maybe we'll do a deep dive into that in the future. So folks, if you fall into any of those categories, proceed with caution and seek medical guidance. But for those of you intrigued by the potential of intermittent fasting, welcome back to our deep dive into the world of intermittent fasting. We've been talking about, some of the potential benefits and considerations of the 168 method. Now let's explore how to actually make this work, in practical terms. Okay, so a great place to start is, choosing an eating window that fits your lifestyle. Some people prefer to skip breakfast, while others find it easier to skip dinner. It really depends on, your individual preferences and your daily routine.
Yeah, so there's no right or wrong way to do it. It's about finding what feels best for you.
Exactly. The most important thing is consistency. Once you've chosen your eating window, try to stick to it as closely as possible, and this will really help your body adjust and minimize those hunger pangs.
Okay, so consistency is key.
Yeah.
But let's talk about those hunger pangs for a second, especially during, those first few days. When our bodies are adjusting, do you have any tips for managing hunger during that fasting window?
Hydration is absolutely crucial. Often what we perceive as hunger is actually thirst, so keep a water bottle handy. And sip on it throughout the day. Herbal teas are also a good option. Just make sure to avoid anything with added sugar or artificial sweeteners.
So we're staying hydrated, but are there any healthy snacks we can have during the fasting window if we need a little something extra?
If you're really struggling, a small handful of unsalted nuts or a few spoonfuls of plain yogurt can help tide you over without breaking your fast.
Good to know. And I have to ask about coffee. A lot of us rely on that, morning cup of joe to get going. Is coffee allowed during the fasting window?
Black coffee is generally fine. It has minimal calories, and it won't spike your insulin levels. However, be mindful of adding sugar cream or flavored syrups, as those will break your fast.
So black coffee is a go, but those fancy lattes are off limits. Got it.
What about other beverages? Anything else we can enjoy during the fasting window?
Unsweetened tea, sparkling water, and bone broth are all excellent options. Bone broth in particular can be very satiating, and it provides electrolytes.
Bone broth. Interesting. I wouldn't have thought of that. Now let's move on to meal planning. Any tips for making the most of that 8-hour eating window?
Focus on nutrient-dense foods. That'll keep you feeling full and satisfied. Think lean protein, healthy fats, and plenty of fiber from fruits and vegetables. Sounds delicious and nourishing.
Yeah.
Can you give us some specific examples of foods that fit the bill?
Salmon, chicken breast, eggs, avocado, nut seeds, leafy greens, berries. These are all excellent choices.
Yeah, those are all foods I enjoy eating.
Mm-hmm.
This is starting to sound very doable. What about portion control, though? Is there a magic number of calories we should be aiming for during that eating window?
There's no one-size-fits-all answer when it comes to calories. It's really about tuning into your body's cues and eating until you're comfortably satisfied, not overly stuffed. And over time, you might even find that you naturally eat less as your body adjusts.
Right. It's about listening to our body's signals rather than obsessing over counting calories. Now let's talk about cravings for a second. How do we deal with those sudden urges for sugary or processed foods?
Cravings are completely normal, especially when you're first starting out. One strategy is to simply delay gratification. Tell yourself you can have that treat, but not right now. Often the craving will pass.
Delaying gratification. I like that. It's like a little mental trick. But what if the craving persists? Are there any healthier ways to satisfy a sweet tooth?
Absolutely. A piece of fruit, a
Yeah.
small square of dark chocolate, or a homemade smoothie with berries and unsweetened almond milk can be great alternatives.
Those all sound pretty good to me. Now, what about exercise? Can we still work out while we're intermittent fasting?
Yes, but it's important to listen to your body and adjust your workout intensity and timing as needed. Some people find they have more energy to exercise in the morning before breaking their fast, while others prefer to work out later in the day.
So it's all about finding what works best for your individual body and your energy levels. Now, I think it's important to address a potential concern that some listeners might have. Isn't it dangerous to skip meals, especially if you have a history of disordered eating?
That's a very important point. Intermittent fasting is not for everyone, and it's crucial to approach it with a healthy mindset. If you have a history of disordered eating, this method might not be suitable for you. And it's essential to talk to your doctor or a registered dietitian before making any changes to your eating habits.
Right. Safety and mental well-being always come first. But for those approaching intermittent fasting with a healthy mindset and no underlying health concerns, what are some signs that it might be working? What can we expect to experience?
One of the first things you might notice is improved energy levels. As your body gets more efficient at burning fat for fuel, you may feel more alert and focused throughout the day.
Fewer of those afternoon slumps.
Yeah.
Sign me up. What else? What else can we expect?
Many people also report improved digestion and reduced bloating. Giving your digestive system a break allows it to rest and repair, which often leads to a happier gut.
Makes sense. What other positive changes might people notice?
You might also experience improved sleep quality when you're not constantly digesting food. Your body can focus on other important processes, including sleep regulation.
So better energy, better
Right.
digestion,
Yeah.
and better sleep. Those are some pretty compelling benefits. Now, I know this is a common question, but what about weight loss? Is that a guaranteed outcome of intermittent fasting?
While weight loss is a common side effect of intermittent fasting, it's not the primary goal. Remember, this is about overall health and well-being. If you're approaching intermittent fasting with a focus on improving your health, weight loss might naturally follow.
Right. It's not about deprivation. It's about nourishing our bodies and giving them the time they need to thrive. Let's shift gears for a second and talk about the long-term sustainability of intermittent fasting. Is this something we can do for the rest of our lives?
The beauty of intermittent fasting is that it's a lifestyle, not a diet. You can adjust the frequency and duration of your fasts as your needs and preferences change over time.
So it's adaptable. We're not locked into a rigid schedule forever. But what about those times when life throws us a curveball, like holidays, social events, vacations? How do we navigate those situations while still honoring our, intermittent fasting practice?
Flexibility is key. Don't be afraid to adjust your eating window or take a break from fasting if needed. The most important thing is to find a balance that works for you and your lifestyle.
Right. It's all about finding what works for you and not beating yourself up if you need to deviate from the plan occasionally. Now let's talk about the science behind all of this for a second. How does intermittent fasting actually work on a cellular level?
It all comes back to autophagy, that cellular cleanup crew we discussed earlier. Intermittent fasting triggers this process, which is crucial for removing damaged cells and preventing disease. It also boosts the production of ketones, which are an alternative fuel source for the brain and body.
Ketones, those sound familiar. Aren't those also produced during the ketogenic diet?
Yes, exactly. The ketogenic diet is a very low-carb, high-fat diet that also triggers ketosis, the state of burning fat for fuel. Intermittent fasting can be seen as a gentler way to achieve some of the same benefits, without the strict dietary restrictions.
So it's like a keto light approach. That's really interesting. How exactly does ketone production benefit our health?
Well, ketones have been shown to have neuroprotective effects, meaning they can protect the brain from damage and potentially improve cognitive function. They also have anti-inflammatory properties and may even help regulate blood sugar levels.
Wow. Ketones are like little superheroes for our brains and bodies. Let's talk about something else that's often mentioned in connection with intermittent fasting, insulin sensitivity. What is insulin sensitivity, and how does fasting impact it?
So insulin is a hormone that helps your body use glucose for energy when you eat. Your pancreas releases insulin to move glucose from your bloodstream into your cells. And insulin sensitivity refers to how well your cells respond to insulin.
Okay, so if we have good insulin sensitivity, our cells are receptive to insulin and ready to use that glucose. But what happens if our insulin sensitivity is poor?
If your cells become resistant to insulin, glucose can build up in your bloodstream, which can lead to high blood sugar levels and potentially type 2 diabetes.
So insulin resistance is definitely something we want to avoid. How does intermittent fasting help improve insulin sensitivity?
When you fast, your insulin levels drop, giving your cells a break from the constant influx of glucose. And this break allows your cells to become more sensitive to insulin again, making it easier for your body to regulate blood sugar levels.
So it's like giving ourselves a chance to reset and become more responsive to insulin. That's incredible. Now let's be realistic for a moment. Intermittent fasting sounds great in theory, but it can be tough. What are some common challenges people face when they first start out, and how can we overcome them?
One of the biggest challenges is definitely hunger, especially in the beginning. As your body adapts, those hunger pangs will lessen. But in those early days, remember those tips we discussed about staying hydrated, drinking herbal tea, and maybe having a small handful of nuts or plain yogurt if you need to.
Right. Those hydration and healthy snacking tips are essential, especially in those early stages. What other challenges might people encounter?
Social situations can be tricky. It's important to remember that you don't have to be rigid with your fasting schedule. It's okay to adjust your eating window or take a break from fasting altogether if needed.
Yeah, no need to feel like a social outcast. We can still enjoy gatherings with friends and family while honoring our health goals. What other hurdles might people face?
Some people experience headaches or fatigue, especially in the first few days. This is often due to caffeine withdrawal or electrolyte imbalances. Make sure you're drinking enough water. And consider adding a pinch of salt to your water or broth to replenish electrolyte.
Salt in our water? That's a new one. But it makes sense if it helps with electrolyte balance. Any other common challenges?
Some people find it difficult to break their fast without overeating. It's important to start with a small, balanced meal and eat slowly and mindfully to avoid feeling overly full or uncomfortable.
So it's not about stuffing ourselves during that eating window, but making mindful choices and listening to our body's cues. This has been an incredibly enlightening conversation. Before we wrap up this part of our deep dive, are there any other words of wisdom you'd like to share with our listeners who are considering giving intermittent fasting a try?
Remember that consistency is key. It takes time for your body to adapt to a new eating pattern. So be patient and stick with it. And most importantly, listen to your body if you're feeling unwell or experiencing any negative side effects. Stop fasting and consult with your doctor.
Excellent advice. Consistency, patience, and listening to our bodies. Those are the keys to success with intermittent fasting. Stay tuned for the final part of our deep dive, where we'll explore the potential future of personalized nutrition and how technology might revolutionize the way we eat for optimal health. Welcome back. We're diving into the final part of our intermittent fasting journey, and this is where things get really interesting. We've talked about the history, the science, the practicalities. Now let's look ahead and imagine, the future of personalized nutrition.
Yeah, it's an exciting time.
Yeah.
Imagine wearable devices that go beyond just tracking, our steps and our heart rate. Think sensors that can actually analyze our blood in real time and give us instant feedback on how our food choices impact our blood sugar, our inflammation levels, even cellular repair.
So we could actually see how that donut or that salad is affecting us right then and there on our wrist. That's kind of mind-blowing.
It's really about empowering us with knowledge. Imagine seeing your blood sugar spike after that sugary drink, or witnessing a decrease in inflammation markers after, a day of healthy eating and intermittent fasting. Having that immediate feedback could be incredibly motivating.
Yeah, it's like the old saying, seeing is believing. Sometimes we need that visual proof to really drive the point home. Where do you see this technology going in the future?
Well, I think we're moving towards truly personalized nutrition recommendations. Imagine getting advice based on your unique genetic makeup, your microbiome, your lifestyle. No more, generic advice, but a customized roadmap to optimal health.
That sounds amazing. A personalized plan for each of us. What other possibilities do you see on the horizon?
As this technology advances, we might even be able to predict and prevent diseases before they even develop. That's a pretty powerful thought.
It's like taking control of our health destiny. But let's bring it back to intermittent fasting for a second. How could this technology enhance our practice?
Well, imagine a device that tells you exactly when your body enters autophagy or when your ketone levels are optimal. This kind of real-time feedback could help you fine-tune your fasting schedule and really get the most out of it.
Yeah, it would take the guesswork out of it. We could make data-driven decisions about our fasting practice. This all sounds incredible for individuals, but how could this technology impact society as a whole?
Well, imagine a world where chronic diseases are no longer the norm. By empowering people to make healthier choices, we could see a significant reduction in the burden on healthcare systems. It could really transform the way we approach health and well-being on a global scale.
That's a powerful vision. A healthier, happier society. All thanks to the power of knowledge and technology. But as with any new technology, there are always things to consider. What are some of the challenges we need to be aware of as this personalized nutrition revolution unfolds?
Well, privacy is a huge concern. We need to make sure that our health data is protected and used responsibly. And we need to ensure that this technology is accessible and affordable for everyone, not just a select few.
Yeah, that's so important. Equity and privacy must be top priorities as we move forward. This glimpse into the future has been incredibly thought-provoking. Any final thoughts for our listeners as we wrap up this deep dive on intermittent fasting?
Stay curious and keep exploring. The world of health and wellness is constantly evolving, whether it's intermittent fasting, personalized nutrition, or other emerging practices. Stay open to new possibilities and empower yourself with knowledge.
That's great advice. And as we conclude this exploration of intermittent fasting, I'm left with this sense of wonder and possibility. If our bodies are capable of such powerful self-renewal, what other hidden potentials are waiting to be unlocked? Keep questioning, keep learning, and keep diving deep. Until next time,